Now, The Hill is reporting that President-elect Donald Trump will soon ban administration officials from lobbying for 5 years after leaving government. Now, this is according to his transition team led by Mike Pence. Now, Trump transition team member Sean Spicer, during a conference call, said, "It goes back to Mr. Trump's goal of making sure people aren't using government to enrich themselves." Okay, hey, look, I like that message, right? I like that message. I like the fact that, hey, you're going to stop people from lobbying the government after they've been in the government for a set period of time. That's a good policy. I don't have any issue with that. Now, here's some of the details. Now, all appointees will have to sign a document that says whether or not they are registered lobbyists or have terminated any ties to lobbyist groups, as well as signing a pledge to not go back to lobbying for corporations within 5 years. Now, it also includes a lifetime ban on ex-administration officials representing foreign governments. Now, look, those were promises that Donald Trump made during his campaign. And it looks like, in some fashion, he will be following through on those promises. Now, look, if you know me, you know my show, you know I'm skeptical of Donald Trump. But if the Trump team really does plan on banning lobbyists from being in positions of power, well, that's fantastic. That's great. Now, because look, I want Donald Trump to drain the swamp. I want all politicians. If Hillary Clinton had won, I would be doing the same thing. I'd be saying drain the swamp. Get rid of lobbying. Get rid of the influence of large corporations and special interest groups. That's a no-brainer. That's what 90% of the American people want. They think that money has too much influence on our political system, and they want us, and they want our politicians to get rid of that influence and actually represent them. This is not a partisan issue, and so look, I'm obviously I'm a biased, I'm progressive, and so I'm going to be critical on a Trump administration. I'm going to be critical on every administration that doesn't get money out of politics. But that also means that I'm going to be fair and I'm going to stick to the facts when I'm reporting on what an other administration, what a Republican, in this case, administration is doing. Now, I would also be critical if Hillary Clinton were doing the same thing. Now, I do have some criticisms of this as well that I'm going to get into. Now, look, if you think that I'm against Trump, to continue that last thought, because I got to get this out. If you think I'm against him because he's trying to clean up the corruption, no, I'm not against that. Well, I'm against Donald Trump for the most part because I don't trust him. He lies and he flips positions, and not to mention all the horrific things he said about Muslims and Mexicans and women. Okay, but look, if he does come out and he fights corruption, then that is going to be a positive thing, and I will give him credit for it. Now, while this is good news, right, I like this, unfortunately, there are loopholes, and I'm going to go and explain. In fact, MarketWatch is reporting that Trump's lobbying ban would only apply to the executive branch. So former Trump administration officials could still be free to lobby Congress on behalf of corporations and special interests. Not could, they would be able to under this ban. Well, see, that's why I don't trust him, because this seems like a half measure. Now, according to Lisa Gilbert, a public citizen, a lobbying ban on the executive branch could, be filled with ways to get around it. Okay, it would be pretty easy to get around that lobbying ban to be able to lobby at least members of Congress, as I pointed out before. Now, Gilbert says the definition of lobbyist is also very narrow. And here's another way to get around it. Former administration officials could call themselves consultants or use another title and put their experience to work for corporations and other special interests. That's what we don't want. Now, and as noted by the Sunlight Foundation, lobbyists are also required to register if they spend at least 20% of their time lobbying on behalf of a client. However, they also note that the threshold is pretty easy to get around. And they cite the example of former Senator Tom Daschle. Now, Daschle worked as a policy advisor at lobbying firms after leaving the Senate in 2005. Now, interestingly enough, MarketWatch also notes that Daschle finally registered as a lobbyist in March of this year. Wait, what took you so long, Tom? Did you get lost for 11 years? What happened? I thought you were supposed to sign up to be a lobbyist. No, you didn't have to, because you called yourself a policy advisor, which is the same goddamn thing. But that is a way to get around these bans. That is a loophole that they have to close. Now, look, I like that Donald Trump at least did a ban on executives, on the executive branch. People in the branch, or formerly in the administration in that branch, cannot lobby that branch anymore. Okay, that's good, right? I like that. But just as these watchdog groups point out, there are too many loopholes and ways to get around this ban, which essentially makes it a little useless. It doesn't have teeth. Now, after all, did you think that the people that Donald Trump surrounds himself with would want to deny themselves a turn at that revolving door? Did you really think that? No, that's preposterous. Of course they want to get into that revolving door. All of these politicians, Democrats, Republicans, with the exception of a few, by the way, love that revolving door. You know why? Because it's all about the money. You got to follow the money. That's what going into public service has become. Just a way to ingratiate yourselves to the private sector so that later on, after you've served your term, you can go and serve the corporations by lobbying Congress. And this law does not stop that. This ban does not stop that. And look, back to the Democrats and Republicans, right? Like during the primary, you remember, I reported on this. Just so that you don't think I'm some Democrat, partisan hack. Remember Debbie Wasserman Schultz? She lifted, when she was the chair of the DNC during the Democratic primary, she removed the DNC's ban on corporate lobbyists. Which means now the DNC can take all of that corporate money in, and what they did is that they funneled it towards Hillary Clinton. That is also corruption. I am against that as well. So look, both parties do it, and both parties end up doing some sort of lip service towards ending it. And I don't trust that Donald Trump is going to be any different based on his past. Just like I didn't trust Hillary Clinton to do anything about it either. Now look, are these reforms bad? No. No, I pointed out how I like the idea behind them, but they're not strong enough. So it's not going to solve the problem. You're still going to have corporate lobbyists lobbying Congress. No change. I thought he was supposed to rock the establishment, change the establishment. No, he's putting a Band-Aid. That's not change. Now, if he really is serious about reforming Washington, he would push to get the money out of politics. He would use the bully pulpit, for example, to call out Citizens United and to call for a public, a ban on corporate money and for public financing of elections. Look, he called out Citizens United in the Republican primary, and I gave him credit for that. And I think a lot of Americans also gave him credit for that. Now, if he came out and he said, I don't believe that corporations are people, and I don't think that money should equal speech, I don't want our politicians getting all this money, and I will call on the Supreme Court. I will appoint a justice that will overturn Citizens United and start the process of removing money in politics. Now, we know from his Supreme Court picks that that's not going to happen because they're all picks from the Heritage Foundation that it seeks to get more money into politics. So if he actually did take a stand and said, I'm actually going to do something, I'm actually going to buck my party, I'm going to buck the Republican Party, and I'm going to appoint a justice that believes in campaign finance reform, then I would give him credit in the world. All of it. I would cheer him on in that regard. And as far as this goes, I would apologize to him for doubting his resolve to clean up actual corruption. But I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think it's going to do that. Maybe when he takes off, maybe we'll see. But I don't hold out hope for that. I don't. Now, what I do know for certain is that right now the only shot that we have to actually drain the swamp, with or without presidential help or whatever, the Supreme Court and all that, is to get the money out of politics, right? Using an amendment. See, if you end that, you overturn Citizens United. You say that corporations aren't people, that money is not speech. You do an amendment, you're going to end that revolving door, and you make it so that lobbyists no longer have more say than regular people do. That's the way you get your government back. That's the way you make America great again. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.